Hi guys, so today we're going to read a few more chapters of James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl, the read aloud that we've been doing together for Stark County Elementary School families. And today we're going to start on chapter 21 when we left off yesterday. James had come up with a plan to get the peach up and out of the water because the sharks were circling it and they were eating it. And he told them they needed to lasso a bunch of seagulls and lift them up. And then he said they were going to get the seagulls to try to come down and eat the earthworm. And the earthworm said, no, I'm not going to do that. So he said he wouldn't have to give his life. The other animals said, well, it would be a noble thing to do. And he said he didn't have to give his life. He said, now listen to me. This is what we'll do. And that's where we left off. So that's where we're going to start. Why, it's absolutely brilliant, cried the old green grasshopper when James had explained his plan. The boy's a genius, the centipede announced. Now I can keep my boots on after all. Oh, I shall be pecked to death, wailed the poor earthworm. Of course you won't. I will, I know I will, and I won't even be able to see them coming because I have no eyes. James went over and put an arm gently around the earthworm's shoulder. I won't let them touch you, he said. I promise I won't, but we've got to hurry. Look, down there. There were more sharks than ever now around the peach. The water was boiling with them. There must have been 90 or 100 at least, and the travelers up on top, it certainly seemed as though the peach were sinking lower and lower into the water. Action stations, James shouted. Jump to it. There is not a moment to lose. He was the captain now, and everybody knew it, and they would do whatever he told them. All hands on deck except the earthworm, he ordered. Yes, they all said eagerly, and they scuttled to the tunnel entrance. Come on, let's hurry. And you, centipede, James shouted, hop downstairs and get that silkworm to work at once. Tell her to spin as she has never spun before, as if our lives depend upon it. And the same applies to you, Miss Spider. Hurry now. Start spinning. In a few minutes, everything was ready. It was very quiet now at the top of the peach. There was nobody in sight. Nobody except the earthworm. One half of the earthworm looked like a great, thick, juicy pink sausage laying innocently in the sun for all the seagulls to see. The other half was dangling down toward the tunnel. James was crouching close beside the earthworm on the tunnel entrance, heaped just below the surface, waiting for the first seagull. He had a loop of strings in his hands. The old green grasshopper and the ladybug were further down the tunnel, holding on to Earthworm's tail, ready to pull him quickly out of danger as soon as James gave the word. And far below the great hollow of the stone of the peach, the glowworm was lighting up the room so the two spinners, the silkworm and Miss Spider, could see what they were doing. The centipede was down there too, exhorting them both frantically to greater efforts, and every now and again James could hear his voice coming up faintly from the depths, shouting, Spin, silkworm, spin, you great fat lazy brute, spin faster, faster, or we will throw you to the sharks. Here comes the first seagulls, whispered James. Keep still now, earthworm, keep still. The rest of you get ready to pull. I won't. Shh. Out of the corner of an eye, James watched the seagull as it came swooping down toward the earthworm, and then suddenly it was so close that he could see its small black eyes and its curved beak, and the beak was open, ready to grab a nice piece of flesh out of the earthworm's back. Pull! Shouted James. And the gold-green grasshopper and the ladybug gave the earthworm's tail an enormous tug, and like magic, the earthworm disappeared into the tunnel. And at the same time, up went James's hand, and the seagull flew right into the loop of silk that it was holding out. The loop, which had been cleverly made, tightened just the right amount, but not too much, around its neck, and the seagull was captured. Hooray! Shouted the old green grasshopper, peering out of the tunnel. Well done, James! Up flew the seagull with James paying out the silk string as it went. He gave it about 50 yards, and then he tied the string to the stem of the peach. Next one, he shouted, jumping back into the tunnel. Up you get again, earthworm. Put some more silk on this, but bring up more silk, centipede. Oh, I don't like this at all, wailed the earthworm. It only just missed me. I felt the wind of it on my back as it went swishing past. Shh, said James. Keep still, here comes another one. And so it did again and again and again, and the seagulls kept coming, and James caught them one after the other and tethered them to the peach stem. 100 seagulls, he shouted, wiping the sweat from his face. Keep going, they cried. Keep going, James. 200 seagulls, 300 seagulls, 400 seagulls. The sharks, as though sensing that they were in the danger of losing their prey, were hurling themselves at the peach more furiously than ever, and the peach was sinking lower and lower still into the water. 500 seagulls, James shouted. Silkworm says she's running out of silk, yelled the centipede from below. She says she can't keep up much longer, nor can Miss Spider. Tell them they've got to, James answered. They can't stop now. We're lifting, someone shouted. No, we're not. I felt it. Put on another seagull, quick. Everybody, quiet, quiet. Here's one coming now. This was the 501st seagull, and the moment that James caught it and tethered it to the stem with all the others, the whole enormous peach suddenly started rising slowly up out of the water. Here we go, guys. Hold on. Hold on. But then it stopped, and there it hung. It hovered and swayed, but it went no higher. At the bottom of it was just touching the water. It was like delicately bouncing on a scale, and we needed only the tiniest push one way or the other. One more will do it, shouted the gold-green grasshopper, looking from the tunnel. We're almost there. And now came the big moment. Quickly, the 502nd seagull was caught and harnessed to the peach stem, and then suddenly, but slowly, majestically, like some fabulous golden balloon, with all the seagulls straining at the strings above, the giant peach rose up, dripping out of the water, and began climbing toward the heavens. And here's a picture of that. Chapter 23. In a flash, everybody was up on top. Oh, isn't it beautiful, they cried. What a marvelous feeling. Goodbye, sharks. Oh boy, this is the way to travel. Miss Spider, who was literally squealing with excitement, grabbed the centipede by the waist, and the two of them started dancing around and around the peach stem. The earthworm stood up on his tail and did a sort of wiggle of joy all by himself, and the old green grasshopper kept hopping higher and higher in the air. The ladybug rushed over and shook James warmly by the hand. The glowworm, who was the best of times was very shy and silent creature, sat glowing with pleasure near the tunnel entrance. Even the silkworm, looking white and thin and completely exhausted, came creeping out of the tunnel to watch this miraculous ascent. Up and up they went, and soon they were as high as the top of a church steeple above the ocean. I'm a bit worried about the peach, James said to the others, as soon as all the dancing and shouting had stopped. I wonder how much damage those sharks have done to it underneath. It's quite impossible to tell from up here. Well, why don't I go over the side and make an inspection, the spider said. It will be no trouble at all, I assure you. And without waiting for an answer, she quickly produced a length of silk thread and attached it to the end of the peach stem. I'll be back in a jiffy, she said, and then she walked calmly over the edge of the peach and jumped off, playing out the thread behind her as she fell. The others crowded anxiously around the place where she had gone over. Wouldn't it be dreadful if the thread broke? Said the ladybug. There was a rather long silence. Are you all right, Miss Spider? Shouted the old green grasshopper. Yes, thank you, her voice answered from below. I'm coming up now. And as she came up, climbing foot over foot up the silk thread, and at the same time tucking the thread back cleverly into her body as she climbed past it. Is it awful? They asked her. Is it all eaten away? Are there great holes in it everywhere? Miss Spider clambered back into the deck with a pleased but also rather puzzled look on her face. You won't believe this, she said, but actually there's hardly any damage down there at all. The peach is almost untouched. There's just a few tiny pieces out of it here and there, but nothing more. You must be mistaken, James told her. Of course she's mistaken, said the centipede. I promise you I'm not, Miss Spider answered. But there were hundreds of sharks around us, and they churned the water into a froth. We saw their great mouths opening and sputtering. I don't care what you saw, Miss Spider said. They certainly didn't do much damage to the peach. Then why did we start sinking? The centipede asked. Perhaps we didn't start sinking, the old green grasshopper suggested. Perhaps we were all so frightened that we simply imagined it. At this point, a fact, it was closer to the truth than any of them knew. A shark, you see, has an extremely long, sharp nose, and its mouth is set very awkwardly underneath its face and a long way back. This makes it more or less impossible for it to get its teeth into the vast, smooth, curving surface, such as the side of a peach. Even if the creature turns on its back, it still can't do it because the nose always gets in the way. If you have ever seen a small dog trying to get his teeth into an enormous ball, then you will be able to imagine roughly how it was with the sharks and peaches. It must have been some kind of magic, the ladybug said. The holes must have healed up by themselves. Oh, look, there's a ship below us, shouted James. Everybody rushed to the side, and they peered over, and none of them have ever seen a ship before. It looks like a big one. It's got 3 funnels. You can even see the people on the decks. Let's wave to them. Do you think they can see us? Neither James nor any of the others knew it, but the ship was now passing underneath them. It was actually the Queen Mary sailing out of the English Channel on her way to America. And on the bridge of the Queen Mary, the astonished captain was standing with a group of his officers, all gaping at the great round hole round ball hovering overhead. I don't like it, the captain said. Nor do I, said the first officer. Do you think it's following us, the second officer said. I tell you, I don't like it, muttered the captain. It could be dangerous, said the first officer. That's it, cried the captain. It's a secret weapon. Holy cats, send a message to the Queen at once. The country must be warned, and give me my telescope. The first officer handed the telescope to the captain, and the captain put it to his eye. There's birds everywhere, he cried. The whole sky is teeming with birds. What in the world are they doing? And what? Wait a second. There are people on it. I can see them moving. There's do I have this darn thing focused right? It looks like a little boy in short pants. Yes, I can distinctly see a little boy in short pants standing up there, and there's a sort of giant ladybug. Now, just a minute, Captain, the first officer said, and a colossal green grasshopper. Captain, the first officer said sharply, Captain, please. And a mammoth spider. Oh, dear, he's been at the whiskey again, whispered the second officer. And a simply enormous centipede, screamed the captain. Call the ship's doctor, the first officer said. Our captain is not well. A moment later, the great round ball disappeared into a cloud, and the people in the ship never saw it again. And that's where we're going to stop today. We read chapters 21 through 23, and we will pick up with some new chapters tomorrow, and we will be ready to move on. So we'll see where the Giant Peach goes next when we read more chapters of James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl.